going to share with you a story now about a time that I did not trust my intuition and I allowed myself to be talked into something in a doctor's office heading into surgery that turned out to be really bad for me. So in order to understand some of where the doctor was coming from with this, you need to understand the story of how I got injured first. And it's actually really funny, but I think it kind of goes to illustrate how this went. So at our house, I am the grill master. I love everything about cooking on the grill. It's kind of an art that I'd like to perfect. So I had just grilled up probably 3 pounds of chicken. It was supposed to be like meal prepped for the whole next week, whatever it was. And I was coming up the stairs from being outside. I'm not one to trip downstairs. I always trip up the stairs. And sure enough, with this huge plate of amazing chicken that was like just cooked to perfection, I fell up the stairs and the plate of chicken goes flying out of my hand and everywhere. And I hear my husband yell down the stairs, "Are you okay?" And the first thing I yell is, "Save the chicken!" And I hobble myself upstairs and we get everything taken care of. And I sit down and I start icing my knee. And somehow as I had fallen up the stairs, I hit just right at the patellar tendon that it twisted my knee in a funky way and something popped. And I didn't think it was gonna be too bad, but after icing it for a little bit, it got really bad. And I went to stand up and I pretty much fell. But I got in and I saw a doctor a day or two later because my knee was still just really swollen. And we talked through it and we decided to go a really conservative route and I went to physical therapy. Now, keeping in mind at this time, I was significantly overweight, dare I say even obese, like kind of dangerously so. So it's really hard when you have an injury like that, number one, to determine exactly what's going on, but then also to get taken serious as to like what your pain level is and where you're at, because it's hard to know. So I did physical therapy and we went through things and I was probably 2 weeks into this and it just wasn't getting better and there were certain movements I couldn't tolerate. So I went back to the doctor and they decided to do an MRI. And it came back kind of inconclusive, but I was not bearing weight very well. I was still on crutches. I was probably as strong as that knee had ever been. We decided it was going to be a good time to have surgery. And I went and saw the knee specialist. And then we get to the surgical center. And the nurse says, "Okay, this is the pain medicine you're going to take." And I said, "I'm not going to take that. I react horribly to narcotics. Like I just have all the very worst reactions to the medicine. I have a long history of surgical experiences, and I knew that if I took that particular narcotic, any narcotics, I was going to throw up for at least 24 hours until it was out of my system, that any kind of good that it was going to do for pain management would be undone by the amount of vomiting that I was going to do after that." So I told the nurse, "No, I'm not going to take it." I said, "I will just take Tylenol and ibuprofen." She was like, "Well, we're going to have to get a doctor to sign off on this." I said, "That's fine. I'll tell him." So the surgeon came back and he was looking at me. He's like, "That's not going to be strong enough." And I said, "It will. I'm just going to take Tylenol and ibuprofen. I will just alternate them. I will be just fine." And he said, "No, you're going to have to take something stronger." And I said, "No, I'm not going to take anything stronger." And it was getting pretty tense because I was standing my ground, holding my ground, knowing exactly what was going to happen if I took that narcotic. And he even went so far as to look at me and say, "I can't take you in and operate on you until we have this figured out. You have to take something stronger." And I said, "I can't take something stronger. I have all the worst side effects. I am telling you, ibuprofen and Tylenol will do it." And it was getting pretty tense and it like we were going to get behind schedule on the surgery schedule. And my husband was concerned about this and he just looked at me and said, "Em, I don't know that it's a good idea to argue with the guy who's about to cut you open." And I said, "Fine. Do you know what? Let's just get this done. I'll take it." And he was like, "We can give you something for the nausea." I said, "It's not going to work, but that's fine. And you'll have to because I won't be able to leave here." So we get through the surgery. I get into recovery and I'm cognizant enough. Then they have me swallow this narcotic pill. And then I take the Zofran. And then we get me in the car and get me home. Sure enough, right as soon as we get inside the door, I threw up. And we got it all cleaned up and everything. And we got me up into the recliner and got the ice machine because we had a circulating ice machine, which I knew was going to do wonders for it and was going to help me stay on top of pain management as well. We got that going. I threw up again. And I remember at one point looking at my husband and saying, "I knew I shouldn't have taken that. I knew this was what was going to happen. I just wish he would have listened to me." And I continued to throw up and was extremely nauseated for the first 24 hours. And it was rough. And it was really hard because, again, like, I'm on crutches. I've just had knee surgery. I can't get myself to where I can do that. So you have to have the bowl or the vomit bags or whatever it is right there. And it was pretty intense. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I knew my intuition was just saying, just don't do this. You're going to be better off without it. And I allowed myself to be talked into something medically that I knew was not going to be good for me. And as my husband and I have talked about it again and again, he has looked at me and he has acknowledged and said, man, I was wrong. I was wrong in that instance, and I am so sorry I talked you into that. But also the doctor was wrong. I understand what they are taught, and they are just simply trying to do the best that they can. But in some instances, they don't know how that's going to interact with what's going on. And I had given my history before, and I had mentioned that there was no way I could take any narcotics because it was going to cause this problem. And even with Zofran, it was still going to cause that problem. The anti-nausea medication wasn't going to be enough to counteract how my body was going to respond to the narcotic. As I've gone into procedures afterwards and we talk through pain management, because that is one of the things you talk about as you're putting a treatment plan in place. I always say, I'm not taking any narcotics. It won't work. And they'll run through a list of all the medications. And I'm like, I've taken that one, I've taken that one, I've taken that one. And inevitably it always does. Occasionally we find one that I can try and I do okay with a anti-nausea medication to help counteract it. But ultimately, I end up developing a reaction to that. My tried and true is just give me some ice, give me some sleep, and give me ibuprofen and Tylenol, and we will religiously alternate those every 3 hours, and I do okay. And I don't need the anti-nausea medication, and I get functioning faster and I heal faster. Anytime I don't follow that, I end up having all of those worst reactions. It delays my progress because I'm not able to rest the way I need to. So the thing that I have learned again and again and again is follow your gut on that. And remember those instances when you've allowed yourself not to be, so that you can take that lesson forward as you're advocating for yourself. So biggest tip again, follow your intuition and don't allow yourself to be talked into something that you know in your gut, for whatever reason, is not going to be good for you. Because it's really easy to see the science and it's really easy to see why it would be good for you. And you can allow yourself to be talked into something medically. Just don't do it. Just hold your ground, stand on your intuition, and just advocate for yourself because you know yourself better than anybody does. Until next time, keep it real. Until next time, be real.